beginning, because we are going to kickstart on our news channel that is Sastrarth. So, it has got its own unique connotation. Okay. So, some sort of introduction about Sastrarth will be there. And then we'll come to our, program and your introduction and our, esteemed, August presence of Dr. Sri Surendra Pathak ji. So his introduction to small would follow. But first, something about Sastrarth. Yes, sir. So it is 7. We are going live now. Sir, is it okay?
Yes, okay. It is live now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, viewers from across India and those from across the world. This is Vivekanand Jha, an author, academician, and a public intellectual. Today, we are all inviting you on this unique, spectacular show that is Education Pe Charcha. You all know, because, since those who are very much connected with me, you all know that I've been conducting this program. This is going to be the unique 14th session. Of course, it is a pioneer session on this unique platform that is, Sastrarth, in collaboration with Dr. Ambedkar University of Social Science, Madhya Pradesh, and under the auspices of Dr. Sri Surendra Pathak. Before we kickstart the proceeding and tell you as to who our honored guest is, as most of you might already have guessed it thus far, because by posters and all that, we would like to tell you as to what necessitated us to float this unique platform that is Sastrarth. What is the overall connotation and the significance of this unique word that is Sastrarth? Sastrarth in English, if we translate this particular term in English, it would simply be scholarly debate and scholarly discussion. So basically, what is the importance of this? When we talk about Sastrarth, it would really do justice to me to talk about the ancient India, where our entire land of Jambu Dvipa, because India then was referred to as Jambu Dvipa. So in Jambu Dvip, so there was a particular time when entire Jambu Dvipa was under the spell of Jainism and Buddhism. Means Jainism was ruling the roost. And then in Sanatan Dharma, there was a particular span of time when Sanatan Dharma came under a tremendous stress. It came under the onslaught of the notoriety of Jainism, because they were threatening the Sanatanis to conduct their worship and all that. They would not allow them to go for idol worship. So they were very much being persecuted and harassed by the notorious elements of Jainism. At that point in time, rose in India one of the greatest minds ever born, rather Western philosophers chorus. That great Adi Sankaracharya was the greatest mind ever born in the mortal body. There rose Sankaracharya, who was aggrieved by the ongoing scenario, wherein the Sanatan Dharma was very much under threat of its extinction. In such situation, Sankara rose in the staunch defense of Sanatan Dharma. He went on moving from place to place, from kingdom to kingdom, and on such he would just offer a challenge, rather throw his gauntlet at the king, that in case of a scholarly, in the event of a scholarly debate, that is Sastrartha, if he would lose, then he would choose to get converted into Jain, or else in other ways, if he's the contestant against whom he was contesting, if he would lose, then in that eventuality, the entire population of the state would get converted into Sanatanis. The king would readily agree to that proposition. And then when the scholarly debate would begin, Sankara went on defeating after another scholars. And in the course of that, in course of his journey, he went on re-establishing the Sanatan Dharma. There, he met one of the great scholars, Kumar Bhatt, who was known across the country, across the geographical entity of Jambu Dwipa as one of the great scholars, Sankara wanted to engage him in a scholarly debate. Kumaril Bhatt was already going to die. He was committing suicide because he had insulted his guru. So he said to great Sankara that, look, if you want to contest, you go to Mithila. There is a great scholar called Mandan Misra. If you defeat him, you become invincible. You establish your supremacy. Adi Sankara went to Mithila and engaged himself in a scholarly battle with a Karma Kandi, referred to as Mandan Misra, one of the great scholars in those days. When the debate started, you know that Mandan Misra believed in dualism, the Jiva and God being two different entities. But Sankara, who was the monist, who is referred to as a great monist, who believed in the entire world to be the manifestation of Brahma, the same consciousness. Brahma connotes consciousness. He was of the belief or of the conviction that there is no difference between Jiva and Brahma, because Brahma himself is Jiva and Brahma is in every particle of the universe. So Mandan initially mocked at great Sankaracharya, saying that this appears ridiculous. But when Sankara spoke to him in such a calibrated manner, that Brahma, realization of Brahma comes only beyond the sense. It is a transcendental phenomenon, and such a realization comes only when a man transcends beyond his senses. Stunned Mandan Misra was hearing such a great words of wisdom coming from his young boy. Prostrating himself at the lotus feet of Sankara, he accepted his defeat and went on to become the first, anointed Sankaracharya, the disciple of great monist. He became Suresacharya in the later part of his life. Even before, there was a great Shastrat between Yajnavalkya and Gargi, where the concept of Brahma was discussed in meticulous details. So India has been a land of scholars. Mithila, one of the citadels of scholars. And I would like to tell you the statement of the Honorable Prime Minister in course of his election speech in 2019 in Darbhanga. He saluted Mithila being a citadel of scholars, but simultaneously he rued over the fact that Mithila has failed to produce an entrepreneur of a high caliber. So this is what exactly is the meaning of Shastrartha. Shastrartha basically was, when we have a particular adage in English that pen is mightier than the sword. So Shastrartha is mightier than that of sword. Hinduism survives on Shastrartha, while other religions have always survived on weapons and violence. It is the Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma. Buddhism is a part of it. Jainism is a part of it. Sikhism is a part of it. They alone, Hinduism alone survives on non-violence, on the great philosophy as it is encapsulated in Rig Veda, which Swami Vivekananda said in World Parliament of Religions in 1893 on 11th of September, Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Badanti. As all religions lead to thee, likewise all, as all rivers lead to the sea, likewise all the religions lead to the same Brahma, same God. That is the meaning of Shastrartha. So this is the innate significance of our today, the platform, August platform Shastrartha. I, the convener and founder of this particular Shastrartha channel, now I am going to pay my growing tribute to Sri Pramod Kumar Jha of Dhanbad, who waking up in the midnight, overnight he built up this particular channel for me, saying that you are a Saraswati Putra, I dedicate this channel to you. I salute Sri Pramodji from this particular August platform of Shastrartha, and who was instrumental behind collaboration that has come into existence between Shastrartha and that of Ambedkar Institute of Social Science, the Ambedkar University of Social Science of Madhya Pradesh. He is instrumental. I really salute his efforts, his love, his affection for me. Now, my dear viewers who are joining, who have logged in for the first time here to be a part and parcel of this unique, spectacular bandwagon of Education Pe Charcha. Today we have, I must acknowledge the gracious, conspicuous presence of Sri Surendra, Dr. Sri Surendra Pathak ji, who is, who is representing us in the capacity of a representative of the university, Ambedkar University of Social Science. He is basically the man behind, behind, or the facility. He is the facilitator for bringing into existence this collaboration between Shastrartha and that of, Ambedkar University of Social Science. I would like to, thank him profusely from this august platform and really acknowledge his gracious presence to, illuminate the proceeding. He will offer the vote of thanks in Hindi. Unique, talented person who has a unique capacity to translate so very quickly, the conversation, the discussions, in English into Hindi. A brilliant professor, a brilliant academician, educationist. His gracious presence is going to add value and illuminate the spectacular show of Education Pe Charcha. My dear viewers, today we have got the august presence of our honored guest, Dr. Monika Spolia ji. Madam Monika Spolia ji, I would like to talk about her in just a few minutes. A very important by way of an anecdote. The favor that she dispensed to me, it was in 2014. I wrote my book, Delhi Bacon's Raga for Namo, which Honorable Prime Minister himself, it was a book based on Honorable Prime Minister and Hindu nationalism. And Honorable Prime Minister was glad enough to launch the book in Vibrant Gujarat Education Summit, and Prime Minister was very, very happy to launch that book. I requested Prime Minister then to recommend me, or rather to sponsor me to go to Canada, because Madam Monika Spolia ji had invited me to come to Canada for the book launch of Delhi Bacon's Raga for Namo, because that was very, the great function, gala function was going to be organized there. But Prime Minister, though sanctioned it, but because of some bureaucratic, you can well understand the bureaucratic maze, the things could not proceed smoothly. I could not make it to Canada. But my dear viewers, I was gladdened. My heart swelled with an immense pride when Madam Monika Spolia ji took a pioneering initiative to launch my book, in my absence, with a tremendous amount of pomp and grandeur in the august presence of intelligentsia class of Canada. See, really, I was so much glad that my sister present there in Canada did such a great favor to me. Today, I have a huge, the immeasurable sort of pleasure and indeed a divine privilege to welcome her as our august, as our esteemed guest, honored guest on this august platform. Education Pe Charcha is equivalent to educating the nation. Now, let us know something about who Madam Monika Spolia ji is. My dear viewers, I wouldn't be able to say much because most of you know, just a little bit of introduction, because she has a huge credentials to her credit. If I go on talking about all that, possibly all my time would get exhausted. She is the founder, chief editor of Bharat Times, one of the esteemed newspapers in Canada, which caters to not only to the readers across Canada, but across United States of America and Europe. It is a very, very esteemed newspaper where I too have contributed some of her articles. Madam was really, she was humble enough to publish few of my articles in Bharat Times. She has been a brand, most important of all, she has been a brand ambassador of, brand cultural ambassador of India in Canada. One of the topmost, educationists in Canada, who as a flag bearer, as a brand ambassador, she has been advancing the interest of India as a core nationalist in Canada. That is also one of her, fortes, one of her bastions, which needed to be, articulated at this august platform. This is there, then even that. So basically, with all these, he has written few books, which will come to know, very, very good books, which will come under question and answer session. And, won so much, such good awards. that also, so many awards, scores of awards, businesswoman awards, so many awards. So now, it is a great pleasure inviting Madam Monika Spolia. Madam, you are very, very welcome today to illuminate, to grace and bless our education pe charcha, to illuminate today's spectacular show on Shastrartha. This is, we have a great pleasure to welcome you as our first guest. Although it is our 14th session, which I have been conducting on a different platform, but on Shastrarth, it is you are going to be the pioneer guest. You are kick-starting this proceeding. I welcome you, Madam, to grace and bless and to illuminate today's spectacular show. Madam Monika Spolia, I welcome you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jha. It's a pleasure and it's my privilege to be here on your program. And as you said, we came into contact in 2014, and I launched your book here, and it was a great pleasure, and it was well received as well. And I think it just comes natural that in the culture that I grew up, that I was brought up in, and that is how I have become fruitful through that culture. And it just goes with me wherever I go, because that is who I am. So that's always there. And that's my propeller. Yeah, I do like,
Thanks a lot. Now, actually, this is so nice to have you, and we are just going to start the question answer system, Madam. My first question to you, Madam.
Sure.
Madam, Monika Spolia, founder, chief editor of Bharat Times, the cultural brand ambassador of India, and one of the topmost Indian diaspora in Canada. This is her small introduction. I already said, my dear viewers, she is an ocean, and it is just churning out, rather taking a drops of ocean by way of, her versatility. A woman who represents versatility. Madam, coming to the first question. You were born in India, yes, and grew up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience
Yes.
any cultural shock? Because it is obvious for anyone who in sophomoric days, having stayed in India and then switching over to abroad, especially America or Canada or Great Britain. So did you experience any cultural shock when you switched over to Canada? Let us dig into your sophomoric days in India and college days under the University of British Columbia, Canada. Your take on this, Madam, about your, just walking down the...
I did go through a lot of culture shock, and in return, I would say I have put a lot of Canadians here in culture shock as well by introducing our culture. When I first came, it was just little things, it's a totally different place. The language is slightly different because we're more used to British English in India versus the Canadian English. And, just people are not as warm, as open, but, they are still good people, just in a different way and stuff. So, and that was okay. So in university, I did a lot of research and papers on Indian culture, Indian philosophy, and when one of them was on time and Eastern mysticism and whatnot. In almost every class, even whether it was mathematics or science or the social studies, it was always my culture had a lot. This is what I felt. It had a lot to offer in every single subject. So I was always bringing it in. So yes, I was in a culture shock. And in return, I guess I made them, they went into a culture shock too, because I would make them realize that what they are studying, what they know is essentially it's Western perspective, which they thought was the world perspective before. So yeah, culture shock, it's really interesting how it goes back and forth. So yes, a lot of culture shock I went through, and I would say I got over it by going deep into my own culture and bringing out perspectives from there, which kind of like enriched my own experience of culture as well, because I was young when I left India. So of course I grew up in that culture again, but then I would say that I enriched my cultural heritage, knowledge and understanding and wisdom through just reintroducing myself into my culture. And that what has happened to me in Canada. And it's been interesting experience that I have had to share with the Canadians as well. Yes.
Madam, one thing I would like to know that
Yes.
since you carry a blend of both Orientalism as well as Oriental heritage as well as Occidental values, because over a period of stay in Canada, you must have cultivated the Occidental way of life, whereas you have been a carrier of Oriental priceless heritage. So having attained the blend of both, how do you see yourself, in terms of an individual, or as an individual, how do you look yourself as? Means how you have evolved yourself as? Would you like to share some experience with all our viewers that you're having both together?
Yes, it's actually a blessing to have both of the cultures on your hand, on your fingertips, because if you if one of them lets you down, you always have something else to hold on to. So it's always good to have, because you can get the best of both. We all have goods and bads in each culture and this and that. And this is how, I guess, this is a method of perhaps refining oneself. You can take a bit from here, a bit from there, and you can build yourself strong and better. It's interesting. I mean, here I latch on to my Indian culture a lot, because that gives me the strengthhold in here. And versus I spent 2 years in India after having come here for 14 years. I was there in Jaipur, and there too, it was a bit of a culture shock going from Canada back there, and meeting even our own people there as well. So there I was again, I was in the same struggle of just latching on to a little bit of Canadian culture as well, because that gave me a strengthhold there. So I guess when it comes to fusion of the cultures, we can't just go linearly, just the Hindu culture, just the Western culture, not just one culture, but it is very good to embrace the goodness in each culture and make it refined. And that gives you a really strong foothold, because that is who you are. That is who I am. I am not only Indian and I'm not only Canadian, right? So I would say I'm the fusion of both, and I have the strength of both cultures that I carry, which you can see through my writings, poems, and the books and stuff. So.
Thank you, madam, for expounding your own persona in such a magnificent way, because indeed, you represent the blend of both, the beauty of the blend of both cultures. That speaks a volume, the way you have articulated. Thanks a lot, madam. I'm just coming to the next question. You had conducted an independent research, on Adivasi in India, and even prepared a plan for their resettlement. It was also published in the book Fair and Festival of India, Indian Tribes and Tribal Dances of India. Now I would like to know, madam, what that resettlement was all about and how it had impacted the lives of Adivasi. Please tell us something as to how it impacted tangibly the lives of the Adivasis on account of your research on resettlement.
Okay, well, the resettlement was about the power lines, the power grids they were putting in a lot of, it went through a lot of rural areas where people were actually living. And some of the power lines were already there and some of them were going to be implemented. So once we're already there, some of them had the houses around them, and we studied that as well. And the crops, they wouldn't grow, not under the power grid. also in this, a little bit of the surrounding area as well. And the water is not good there either, because everything is, I would say, influenced with the power lines, not necessarily polluted, but influenced. And people were being displaced because of that, because if the government needed that place for the power grid to pass through, then they had to go somewhere else. And some of them had huge farms in that area. Some of them had houses in that area, or their local, as the water areas and stuff like that. So it all came down to compensation. However, in terms of their culture was, in a way, was being uprooted. So they were being displaced all over. So we found not only the equivalent compensation, monetary compensation for them, we put some figures in there, as well as we had to look at what other appropriate place could be there, and if they needed any education in some more appropriate way to deal with their new way of living and stuff, because the kids, because if they, for example, if the children, if they could not go back to their growing, let's say growing crops or something, for example, then they would have to at least go to school and get educated in some other way so that they can make a living in a different way than they are used to now, right? So, and it was interesting. We, for some of the lands there, we will ask people who it belongs to, and we couldn't find the people. We had to go to their townhouses, and it was small places, like, but it was one thing that really was surprising, that even though they're like small little villages, those might have been, but they had the books on generations back. They might be in a small little place, one room or something like that, but everything was actually documented. And I was surprised. I'm like, okay, if we go back in Canada and that far back, we might not find that, but in India, we still can. So that was, that's one thing was really interesting. And people were a little bit both ways. They were skeptical, they were scared. First, they didn't want to give us so much information, but then we had to, tell them that we are there for them and we will negotiate for them. So then they will, warm up slowly. And so overall, yeah, we got to know a lot of them personally, those people in those villages there. And it was interesting. We made them understand that, yes, now it's the movement, progressive movement, that if they are being uprooted from their house, not all that bad, they're going to move forward in their life. And we'll look toward their children's education and better land for them, and, better way of living and stuff. So that's what that was about.
Fantastic, madam. Indeed, it was a great experience that you narrated.
Yes.
You narrated for our viewers. Madam, I would just like, we are coming to the next question. Actually, how do you contrast? Because since having experienced the Indian lifestyle in the sophomoric days, and then all of a sudden a switch over to a European lifestyle in Canada, in American lifestyle, as I would say.
Yes.
So, from that perspective, this question I would like to ask you, and I would like to have your viewpoint, your perspective on this. How do you contrast the cultural diversity? Because India is a country known for its cultural diversity. Even Canada, has now, of course, its own cultural diversity. Especially on account of diaspora, not from India, but from various countries. So how do you contrast the cultural diversity in the lifestyle of India as well as that of Canada? You share your own perspective, on this particular issue, madam.
Yes, my first experience of cultural diversity is definitely from India. That's where I had seen all the different cultures, everybody just being there and getting along together. And in Canada, in the beginning, I would say about maybe 20, 25 years back, it was more or less like they would give the people from other culture, okay, you have this designated place, you can go and do whatever you want. You can have your culture represented over there. So that was being very exclusive in a way. inclusive in a sense that, yes, they recognize that we have different culture, but exclusive in a sense that we are made out to just go somewhere and represent ourselves and then come back. And it was not part of the mainstream. And that went on for quite a while. And now I would still, and then it became, after that, it became a little bit of tokenism, because people will be there in high places. They will have some, let's say, a girl wearing saris, or, someone with a burqa or something. And it became a lot of tokenism for about another 10 years. That's about 15 years back and stuff. And slowly it's still a struggle, however, but now people are more respective of these things than they were before. And so, Canada is also a culture of, a lot of different cultures put together. However, I would say, if I am to distinguish between the Indian cultural diversity and Canadian cultural diversity, I would say India is more inclusive. And I would say more inclusive. It is inclusive, actually. And Canada is not as inclusive yet. Because let's say if I just went into a store wearing my sari or something, and people will look at you oddly, And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in India, but not at that level. No, not as much. And I actually did that when I was in the university. I did that a lot because I didn't grow up wearing sari, and because I was still young, and here I just wore the dresses here, the pants and dresses. And so I started doing that in university just to shock people a little. And if there was anything culture, anything, I will be there and I will wear my sari. Sometimes I wore it to class, and I would say people will look a little differently and stuff. And I'm like, I'm still the same person. It doesn't change me. It doesn't change our friendship or anything. So yeah, that's my take. India is ahead on cultural diversity, and Canada, I would say, it has a lot of work still yet to do on cultural diversity, because in the mainstream, it's there, but it's not accepted as such. It's there in a lot of tokenism. Let's say if there's a bank teller, yeah, she might be there wearing a sari or a burqa. Or if it's a teacher, she might be wearing a sari there because she wants to represent. However, I don't think that the students will be showing up doing the same.
Viewers, what Madam has articulated about her own experience and what she has emphasized upon, that is the beauty of India's diversity. My dear viewers, yes. I would like to tell you, as what Madam says, authoritatively, there is no place in the world which can boast of as much diversity as that of our beloved republic, beloved country, India. Yes. It is a heaven on earth, as Madam has just now corroborated. She has just now vouched for this particular fact. This is a heaven on earth. And mind you, please, it is all because of Sanatan Dharma. The Dharma which teaches the world about, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which Prime Minister had so evocatively showcased in the United Nations speech, quoting Vasudeva Kutumbakam. This came only from India, because here the saints realized the oneness of the entire universe. And what Madam says, she has corroborated once again what Swami Vivekananda had said in World Parliament of Religions, and what Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, Mr. Vajpayee, in course of one of the greatest historic debate, while seeking the vote of confidence way back in 1996, had said that Ekam Sadipra Bauda Badanti. He too commenced his speech, kick-started his speech with this quotation, because this is the profundity of the concept of Vedas pertaining to all religions being the same. This is India, the greatness of India, which Madam has so lucidly elaborated. Thank you, Madam, for sharing your great experience. Now I am coming to a very important question, Madam. Now, of course, pertaining to your career, because you have the privilege of being a PhD holder in anthropology as well as a political science. You took the journalism. Maybe, that might be your predilection, that might be your sheer penchant for taking to journalism, because I'm also from chartered accountancy background, MBA finance, management
Wow.
teacher, professor, but I love writing. Writing is a call of my soul. You might have known me because for
Yes.
years, every day I keep on writing.
Yes.
You know it. So, madam, this is a very important question we are coming across. Today, you are a founder, chief editor of Bharat Times in Canada. So how would you contrast and differentiate between that of ethnic journalism and that of journalism of diaspora? Because though I'm not very sure, but I am tempted to form this conclusion or draw this inference that maybe, your newspaper might be mostly read by Indians diaspora. Maybe even local Canadians might be reading it. I'm not discounting this factor, but primarily
Right.
this Bharat Times may be meant for Indian diaspora in Canada, USA, and everywhere. So then, you are doing a journalism for diaspora. So how do you differentiate between ethnic journalism and that of journalism for diaspora, of which Bharat Times is a representative one? Please, madam, your say on this.
Okay. Well, before I started the newspaper, I looked into other current newspapers which were around, the ethnic media that was around, and I would say almost 100% of it was just copy paste from internet to there. They were just reading the news from back home, not just our own community, but mostly other communities were doing the same thing, whether it's Greek or Italians or any other communities, Caribbean communities, they were doing the same thing. And I thought that this is not journalism and this is not media, this is not communication, And so I thought, so I would, just to please them, maybe a couple of news from internet I would take, but mostly, so I started doing the local journalism there, meeting the local South Asian community from India, from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, and started putting news about them that the mainstream newspaper was not putting in, right? Because they will always overlook our people, our achievements, or profiles, or anything. They'll be only getting the ads from us and stuff. So I went into that a lot. I did a lot of legwork during the first few years, and people were happy because I found out tons of organizations and groups and whatnot and associations, and but they had no exposure in the media. They were all in their little groups that they were doing the programs, and they will invite the mainstream people, and voila, they'll have their gala and stuff. But so I think it's a new trend that I started. So my first slogan for the newspaper was the for people by people. And we're going to stay true to that.
I'm sorry.
For people by people.
Old people?
No. For
people. Sorry, please, madam.
Yeah, for people by people. No problem. And so I made it so for people. So, and another one of the stand that I had taken, that I am not going to put any of the mainstream news as the highlight on my front page. That I will be putting just our local community. One of them will be the highlight on the front page. And that was taken in good faith as well. And because mainstream people, they're getting there anyways, right? So I don't want to repeat that. I didn't want to repeat any of the things. So I would say that was that's the difference between the ethnic media and the media for the diaspora. It's because ethnic media, they were just doing the cut paste, just the news from back home. They were presenting it to them in a small fold out, I would say. And I kind of, so I opened up to the whole diaspora as well. So doesn't matter, as long as they are local, that would be that would be the main news in the newspaper. So from local community, any Indian diaspora. And it is well read by the Indian diaspora as well as the local community as well. So whenever they want to look into South Asian community, that's, they would pick on that. And so I guess that's the difference. And I hold that even up to now, I do like to still put the local community as the main one presenting that. And that has been taken. That slogan I mentioned, for people, by people, became very popular after that. Everybody was trying to use that. And the word multicultural was, I switched it over to always saying intercultural. I said, we don't want multicultural. Okay, we want intercultural. We want everybody to be there. So that was also was being used by a lot of people as well as news of the local community. And slowly I've seen a big rise in the mainstream media that they are actually starting to cover the local community so that they can get more of their ads as well. So it's all in good faith of our community.
Remarkable, madam. Dear viewers, you have seen, I have described madam as a brand cultural ambassador of India in Canada. And the way she injected a sense of belongingness, not only in Indian diaspora, but even compelled the local newspapers to cover the news pertaining to India and other parts of Asia. That is, she is the change agent. She has been a change agent. Through her own knowledge, through her own innovation, she compelled the local media, the ethnic media, to cover the news of Asia, that of India and other countries. That is the role that she donned of that of a change agent. Brought about, just gave a voice to the voiceless community. As simple as that. Because if Indian mainstream media was not covering anything pertaining to that of Indian diaspora, obviously she, by virtue of not only introducing her own newspaper, Bharat Times, but thereby forcing all other, the local newspapers or national newspapers to come on the back foot and just realize their own mistake and subsequently began covering the news pertaining to Asia and primarily that of India. That speaks a volume about being a change agent, being a cultural and brand ambassador. Thank you, madam, for bringing India, in some way or other, prominently in the mind of in the psyche of the intelligentsia class of Canada. Thanks, and we compliment you. Sitting here from India, we profusely compliment you for being a pioneer in terms of innovating with such a great, great pioneer idea. Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot for this great, courageous move, innovative move. Madam, you are also a renowned author. I apologize to you because in course of my initial introduction, I glossed over this very important part of your introduction. Madam Monika Spolia ji has been a renowned author. She has authored many of the scores of books, but two of the books which I have considered for this particular interaction of mine with her are two books. That is the Serenity Embraces the Storm, and one Hindi book too she wrote, that is Shaleen Lagan Ka Avara Kadam. So madam, I would like to, in fact, our viewers would like to know, would like to have an insight into first English book and then your Hindi book. Please, your say on this.
Okay, that was actually my second book there. Serenity Embraces the Storm. It's a book of poetry. And at some point I realized it's in poetry, you can say a lot more than in prose and in short form as well. And so I just, I took on to the writing poetry for a while, and it's a really interesting way of conveying messages sometimes and without having to say a lot. And so I enjoy that. And Shaleen Lagan Ke Avara Kadam here, and that's the Hindi poetry. Okay. And that's my first few poems it has in it. And so it's interesting. It's just a book of poems that it has, yeah.
But madam, just having been staying in Canada for almost 2 decades now, how do you manage to cope with with both the languages? I can understand your English language because Bharat Times and all that, and all the time you are speaking, conversing, thinking. But how you manage to retain your your overall command in Hindi too? Because writing a poetry book on poetry itself.
That it is, yes. That I'd like to go back a little bit. When I first came, I guess the emphasis was learn English well, learn English well. I knew English, I just wasn't used to speaking it. Yeah. So went totally into the English culture, but and again, 3-4 years after, I was working in a place, and some people will, I moved to Montreal, and there I was working, and we had our own people here too, a lot more than we had in BC at the time. And they would talk to me in Hindi, and I managed to say a few words back, but I couldn't start the Hindi conversation by myself because I was so overwhelmed with the English culture at the time. And I realized that, and I took to reading all kinds of Hindi books, whatever I could get my hands on. I asked my parents, who were going back and forth to India and back once in a while. So I asked them to get me I got all the Upanishads and all the Vedas books and the Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything. And I read them all. And so it's basically it's a mind frame. You don't forget. You never forget. So that kind of like revived. So after about another 3-4 years, I can easily start a conversation and take a part in conversation. And this is as a result of that. So then I got into listening to poetry and stuff. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So, and slowly it just developed from there. And again, in terms of command of language, again, I would just say that you never forget. It's always there. So you just let it come back to you. And it takes a little bit of time. And so it all just came back. And this is just how it came back to me.
So here, viewers, what Madam was saying, rather prima facie, what she was emphasizing upon, Gurudev Tagore, Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, writes in Gitanjali, and in a stanza he says, where the knowledge is free, where words comes from the depth of truth. Into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. Here, what Madam is talking about, for a poet, for a man with or a woman with an imagination, it is the matter of words is really a matter of procedure. It is a matter of thought. Once you have a thought process, the words automatically take a tangible shape. So Madam had developed that sort of penchant, that sort of proclivity in weaving out the stanzas as the thought already had taken a tangible shape, and the linguistic, vehicular expression automatically came in its place. Thank you, Madam, for narrating a fantastic experience of yours. Coming to the next very, very important question, Madam, because importance of diaspora, especially Indian diaspora in America and Canada, and of course in European countries, they have been playing a very, very pivotal role in shaping the destiny of the nation, not only by terms of FDI contribution, but even by in terms of strengthening the caucus, the American caucus. In the Congress, we had no voice previously, but during Narasimha Rao's regime, India started building up its caucus in America in Congress. India started having a greater and greater say. Again in Canada too, India has a stronger caucus today. So, Madam, my next question coming to you, very important. How would you like to sum up the contribution of Indian diaspora in the context of FDI and in strengthening Indian caucus in Canada, in Canada's legislature, having a greater say of Indian affairs, reflecting through the voice of the legislator? Your say on this, Madam.
It has had a big impact. And I think the first struggle was, as I was saying, when I first started the Bharat Times, all I saw was like little groups here and there everywhere, right? So it was a matter of organizing together. And I would say, there have been a lot of people who have contributed towards that, strengthening themselves, but however, they were just in their groups. The first person who actually, I would say, contributed a lot towards this was one of the MP here of Indian Heritage, Deepak Oberoi. He was, so when he became the minister, he started celebrating Diwali, which has now become like official. Every year, Diwali is celebrated at the Parliament Hill. Because of COVID, we're not going there for the last couple of years, but before that, every year. So it's being celebrated, and he put a lot of the Indians together, the Indian diasporas. He helped a lot of them. He's no more though now, but his legacy, he worked a lot towards his community. And I think that was probably another good start, that they all started getting together and coming together on a bigger and better platform, and having their voice recognized in the legislation as well. And as well, we have had a few Sikh MPs as well in there. So they have, so that way their voice has also traveled all the way to the legislation as well. And that has had a big impact. So, and Diaspora is always there to promote these people and help them.
Great, madam. And I recall, my dear viewers, when I wrote a very important book of Indian diaspora. And when I went through the Gadar movement, I must inform all of you, especially those who are not informed, that when our Indian labor, when they went to America and Canada, the sort of distress that we were subjected to brought rivulets of tears into my eyes. The tears glistened my eyes. I recall how those labor class people, the sort of brutalities they were subjected to, they were being chased, from Canada into America. And the moment they would cross the border of Canada to enter into America, again, there were people pelting stones at them, and they had no recourse but to again return. Again, they were being brutally assaulted. So, that sort of situation our forefathers a century back had undergone in Canada and America. And today, when I see, like Honorable Madam, becoming a rising phenomenon in Canada, and so many like her in America and different parts of Europe, my heart really, just illuminates. I recall a famous observation of Swami Vivekananda. When he went to America and saw, American young woman, he wished ardently that, alas, someday, some, decades later in India too would showcase such young woman talent. Today, seeing Madam, I think Swami Vivekananda, wherever the great Swami would be, obviously he's not going to be born, he must have attained salvation, but his soul must be feeling extremely delighted, seeing the scores of Indian women, presiding over the corporate destiny, presiding over the journalistic destiny, presiding over the destiny of the literature across the world. Really, his heart must be swelling with an immeasurable pride. Thank you, Madam, for narrating such a good experience. Madam, now I'm coming to a very important question, because you are a multi-dimensional personality, which is very difficult to accommodate in such a short-term program as this. You had presented the paper, Sustainable Development, at the World University Service Canada. What is your take on sustainable development? Let me clarify it. Sustainable development has multiple interpretations. Sustainable development even entails, I'm talking about a particular version. In a particular version entails or encompasses the overall exploitation of nature and thereby contributing to so-called corporate glory. That is also a type of sustainable development. Whereas there could be an alternate type of sustainable development where under there is a limited exploitation of natural resource, keeping in view the overall requirement of the human being and not to tamper with the nature. Today, as you have said, and as the entire world is undergoing that corona, there is a version going on that this is nothing but a nature's catastrophic impact upon the human civilization because of humans' transgression of natural laws. So here, what sustainable development you are talking about? Your say on this, Madam.
Okay, that particular paper, we had somebody coming over as a special guest from New Zealand at the time, and they were talking about sustainable development by having a lot of goats and sheep on there and making it sustainable, their livelihoods that way. But I have come across a lot of sustainable development issues here, even in Canada, which are just, they have had catastrophic, impact on the economy. And for one, it's, it's an industrial country, and it thrives on that. And when I first came, and that was about some 40 years ago, and there were a lot of lumber industries here, for example, and they were doing well and people were getting paid. A lot of their livelihoods were based on that. And then slowly they ran out of lumber. And they were starting to run out of lumber. It wasn't in as big quantities as before. And so that had a lot of impact. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of towns were just, abandoned, and no more employment for them who were there. And people had to move to big cities or look for other venues and this and that. So that was, I would say, one of the big industry. And other than that, it's there is a lot of to do with the pollution as well. I mean, they are doing they're doing a lot of innovations now. However, again, when I was about 20 years back, I was at the university. I came across this a lot. Okay, so.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Madam, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So basically, we are. So it's a fantastic exposition. A fantastic exposition on this.
Yeah.
But one thing I would like to know that since I recall here, I would like to say, because now I'm going to ask you a very important question on Eastern mysticism and Western science, because you submitted a paper on Eastern mysticism.
Yes, yes.
Right? And I've gone through a very great poem of that of Robert Frost. Walter de la Mare. Walter de la Mare has written a fantastic poem, and that is, describing about the ghost and all that. It is also but we're not going to discuss that. We are going to discuss about Indian philosophical mysticism that comes with a yogic experience. And of course, you'd be surprised to know, if at all you already don't know about it, that when Swami Vivekananda was in America, and when he would deliver his discourse or his lectures on Vedanta philosophy, some good number of scientists would come to hear him. So one day I just asked one of the scientists that, sir, I have failed to understand that why you keep on squandering or wasting your time hearing an Oriental Swami speak on Vedanta philosophy. Then that scientist had said, no, when I hear Swami speaks, I feel there is a type of sort of correlation between the so-called physics and that of the Vedanta philosophy. So, there is because it is said that where science ends, philosophy starts, or rather metaphysics starts. And since you are such an erudite lady, you must have read great Rishi Aurobindo's Savitri, which is a excellent work, a priceless work on metaphysics, where rising at a subconscious level, Rishi Aurobindo writes about the experience of the soul's journey. So, madam, your take on this, on how you correlate Eastern mysticism with that of Western physics or science. Your take on this.
Okay, it's actually, that paper was very interesting. It started out as nothingness, a paper on nothingness, and went into the parallelism of Eastern mysticism and Western science. So basically, it started out with that there's a stillness of kind of like a sea calmness of the sea almost, right? So that's how almost everything is at the very subatomic level. And then it has there's a potential, because when you reach the quantum physics, then every particle has an antiparticle, right? So a particle comes up, then the antiparticle, then there's annihilation. Again, there's a sea of calmness, right? So in the Eastern mysticism, basically what you see is, even when we say that there is nothingness, it's never that there is nothingness, because it just doesn't exist. Okay, it can be at the level of the calmness of the sea matter, of the subatomic particle level. And then out of that, there's potential. There's a potentiality, that is of particles coming up. And sometimes they get annihilated, sometimes they don't. And so out of that becomes everything. So as we say at the Brahma, he was just thinking his kalpanik, and with that, he did the creation, the rachna of this world, right? So out of that, all of these subatomic particles, there's calmness, there's nothing, right? And then out of that, the particles come, some gets annihilated, some not, and the world builds around that. And that's how basically the Western science has, at the very top level, at the quantum level, that's how it maintains and how it dismantles from there. Yes. So that's what that was about.
Madam, you very correctly, because you are a student, you have been a student of physics. So
Yes.
you try to correlate the concept with quantum physics. Since I have not been a student of science, I'm so very apologetic. I don't understand.
No problem.
But
Yes.
madam, I would like to know one thing, that
Yes.
since from philosophical point of view, I would like to know
Mhm.
that as you talk about nothingness, is this
Mhm.
nothingness can be correlated or compared with that of Buddha's void? Because Buddha says that, or rather Buddhism philosophy says that everything originates from void and then merges into void. There is nothing other than
Exactly.
void.
Yes. Yes.
So this is
yes.
what you're trying to say.
So you can call it void, the same thing that I was calling the sea of calm. And that at the, because even if we look at any table at the subatomic particles, there are particles in there vibrating, right? It's nothing is ever so still. So from that point of view, yeah, nothingness doesn't exist. It could be void or it could be that, but yes, it does necessarily, yeah, refers to that.
Madam, since you have been a student of philosophy, you submitted the papers on philosophy as well.
Yes.
I spent quite good number of years in trying to find out the reconciliation between Buddhist philosophy and that of Adi Shankara's non-dualism. Because Shankara talks about Brahma, consciousness, whereas
Yes.
Buddha talks about void. So could it be that beyond void there is a consciousness, or you mean to say that is void itself is the, is synonymous with that of consciousness? What your say on this?
My say on this would be, I would say the void and they could be parallel. I will personally assume them to be parallel. It's a different perspective on the same take. And again, when we come to that sea of calm, and so there are different potentiality, though they are in the same world, this is happening, right? And more than one thought can be developed in different places, in many different places at the same time. But depending on the environment and the surroundings, and obviously the human mind, it takes on its own shape. So with Buddha, it took on that shape and he called it void, and because that is how he saw it, how he perceived. And perhaps that was his innate knowledge pertained to that. And whereas with the Shankaracharya-ji, he took it on to being the Brahm conscious, but I would tend to say that pretty parallel. This thought.
So nice of you. Thank you, madam. And since we are almost about to complete, I would like to answer, respond to this last question of mine, because, it is so engrossing, so much illuminating that we would like to extend, but we have time constant, madam.
Sure.
Hope you and our viewers would appreciate. Madam, how how would you define yourself as a brand cultural ambassador of India in Canada? Because you have been a brand cultural ambassador. So how would you, in all your humility, but nonetheless being very, being very realistic in terms of describing yourself as such, how would you describe yourself as a brand ambassador of that of India in Canada?
Wow, I think you have put that label on me, and I am honored to be the cultural ambassador. And I think now that you mention it, and I think I have been without even knowing, without realizing, but that's because I do offend a lot of people here from the mainstream by saying that, but I do find everything, I find it in my culture. And that is my root, you know. So whether it has to do with cultural diversity, whether it has to do even sustainable development or anything else, it's just my roots have been always there to strengthen me. And in return to the mainstream culture here, I would say while I was in the university, when I wrote a lot of papers in all different subjects from math, science, philosophy, etc., they were very overwhelmed with the knowledge that I was able to extract from our old scriptures and present to them in a modern day, everyday language. And so that kind of like left imprint there as well of the cultural, I will say the cultural imprint of India. So I think it's a journey, more or less. It's not even a label or title, it's a journey. And I have been on, and it's an honor to be on this journey, and I will continue.
So nice of you, madam. And I recall here the great, priceless, memorable stanzas of Robert Frost. The wood is lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. Miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. Madam has tried to give us an indication that she is very much into that very illustrious and eventful journey. Where that destination will be, she is yet to discover. She is on her way, very, with an avowed intention to unlock all several doors on her way and to attain, all sort of laurels, to win all sort of laurels in course of discovering several, destinations in course of our illustrious and eventful journey. Madam, on this august platform, you have enlightened us to the maximum extent that that we could extract from you. It is a humble request I am making publicly to you that on your benign recommendation, we would like to invite Dr. Poet Laureate Dr. Stephen Gill Sahab, who also knows me, but I have not been in touch with him for so many years together. But he's your esteemed friend.
Yes.
So we would like to invite him also. My dear viewers, now from today, we have introduced a very, we have added value to our session because we have an esteemed academician who is representing Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar University of Social Science, an academician of high repute, Dr. Sri Surendra Pathakji, who will try to, reproduce the context of the gist of our conversation of our honored guest today in Hindi, so that many of our viewers and those who will watch such a live, sprightly video later might be able to draw the conclusion from Dr. Sri Surendra Pathakji's, gist of translation into Hindi. Before that, after he has done it, I will also, speak for a minute or two. I would like to make an announcement today from this high pedestal that on next Saturday, my dear viewers, we are going to have a Namak ka Daroga, one of the outstanding senior IAS officers, Sri Kumar Singh, who retired as a secretary to the Government of India Land Resource Ministry, to the Textile Ministry. He was the additional Home Secretary of Government of India, additional Petroleum Secretary to the Government of India. He is going to grace and bless us on next Saturday, that is 18th of September. Now over to Sri Surendra Pathakji, for Dr. Sri Surendra Pathakji, for translating the gist of today's such an illustrious discussion or interaction with Honorable Madam, in Hindi. Over to you, sir. Dr. Sri Surendra Pathak, sir, please.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद विवेकानंद जी और मोनिका जी। मैं तो बहुत चमत्कृत हूं कि ऐसा कोई क्षेत्र नहीं है जिसमें मोनिका जी ने काम नहीं किया। पत्रकारिता हो, संवैधानिक मुद्दे हो, हिंदी साहित्य हो और क्वांटम फिजिक्स हो, पार्टिकल फिजिक्स हो और उसके आधार पर कॉन्शसनेस को डिफाइन करने की बात हो, इन सभी मुद्दों पर आपके विचार सुन के मुझे लगा कि आप एक ऐसे बहुआयामी व्यक्तित्व हैं जिनके अंदर से न केवल वैदिक जो परंपरा है वो अभिव्यक्त हो रही है और उसके साथ साथ भारतीय सनातन परंपरा का प्रचार प्रसार भी दुनिया में हो रहा है। जैसे आपने बताया दिवाली उत्सव के बारे में, तो मुझे सुन के बहुत प्रसन्नता हुई कि कनाडा में भी भारतीय संस्कृति, भारतीय परंपरा, भारतीय दर्शन के प्रति लोगों में गहरी रुचि है। और साथ में ये भी पता लगा कि जो हमारी राजनीतिक धाराएं हैं और विचार की संस्कृति है, इनको भी बहुत गंभीरता से लिया जा रहा है, उसको समझा जा रहा है और उसके लिए आपने एक स्पेस क्रिएट किया कनाडा में और उसको प्रतिष्ठित करने का काम किया है। मुझे लगता है कि विवेकानंद जी के साथ जो आपका साक्षात्कार हुआ है, ये हम लोगों के लिए एक पूंजी है जिसको हमको बहुत सहेज के रखना है, ताकि आने वाली जो पीढ़ियां हैं, जो विद्यार्थी हैं, हमारे विश्वविद्यालय के विद्यार्थी हैं, जो अध्यापकगण हैं, वो सब इनसे कुछ इंस्पिरेशन ले सकें, प्रेरणा ले सकें और उस प्रेरणा से उनके व्यक्तित्व में एक गुणात्मक विकास भी जो है वो हो सकता है। मुझे लगता है कि आपने जो बात की है वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और जो भी इसको सुनेगा, हमारे साथ YouTube में काफी लोग इसको उसमें जुड़े हुए हैं और आगे भी हम लोग इसको कुछ महत्वपूर्ण लोगों तक इसको प्रेषित करेंगे और उनके कमेंट लेंगे। आपकी जो टॉक है, विवेकानंद जी ने इसको काफी बहुत ही अच्छे मुद्दे उठाए हैं जिससे आपके व्यक्तित्व का पूरा पता लगता है। पूरा तो नहीं कह सकता हूँ, शायद विवेकानंद जी ने जो भी मुद्दे उठाए हैं उससे एक झलक मिलती है और पूरा जानने के लिए तो समय लगता है। जब आपके साथ कभी रहने का अवसर मिलेगा तो आपके व्यक्तित्व के उन अनछुए पहलुओं को भी समझ पाएंगे जो इस टॉक में नहीं आ पाए हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि मैं डॉक्टर B.R. अम्बेडकर यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ सोशल साइंस की ओर से आपका और विवेकानंद जी का विशेष रूप से आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं कि उन्होंने शास्त्रार्थ के माध्यम से इस बहुत ही खूबसूरत चर्चा को अंजाम दिया और वो सारे प्रश्न उठाए जिन प्रश्नों का संबंध समाज के साथ है, राज्य के साथ है, साहित्य के साथ, संस्कृति और दर्शन परंपराओं के साथ है, जिससे आदमी के व्यक्तित्व के उन सब भागों का पता लगता है जो आमतौर पे पहचानने में नहीं आते हैं। तो इसलिए मैं एक बार पुनः हम दोनों संस्थाओं की ओर से आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं और इस उम्मीद के साथ कि आपके विचार हमको भविष्य में भी सुनने के लिए मिलेंगे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। बहुत बहुत विवेकानंद जी।
Thank you, sir. You know, really, you rendered all of us speechless, because I have seen once again my viewers, before we call it a goodbye, I would like to remind all of you that I had the opportunity of my very, infinitesimal association with Honorable Dr. Professor Sri Surendra Pathak ji in course of one webinar. And I must tell you, without, even a single statement of exaggeration, rather a word of exaggeration, without myself even remotely being hyperbolic, I was simply taken aback. I was astounded by his erudition, the way he translated. Oh, and you have seen how beautifully, in such a concise manner, he tried to bring out all the entire discussion in such a holistic form. Really amazing. Sir, I salute you. Very humbly, I salute your erudition. आपको मैं आपके चरणों में प्रणाम करते हुए आपको सब प्रणाम करता हूँ, दिल से प्रणाम करता हूँ आपकी विद्वता को, आपकी ज्ञान को. So, my viewers, dear viewers, so as sir has already very beautifully, he described in just all the content of our scintillating conversation. Today we have had our honored guest, honorable Madam Monika ji. So she has enlightened us. Madam, once again, with my folded hands, I bow down to the time that you have, valuable time that you gave us, and you enlightened all our viewers and other viewers who will watch us again subsequently. They all will get immeasurable benefit, as what Dr. Sri Surendra Patel ji has said. Lot many benefits they will get. My dear viewers, so with this commitment, next Saturday, that is on 18th, we are going to have Namak ka Daroga Sri Anand Kumar Singh ji, the former, just retired a year ago, as a Union Government Secretary to Land Resource Department. He was the Textile Secretary to the Government of India. He was the Additional Home Secretary, Additional Petroleum Secretary. And, I had the pleasure and the privilege of conferring this sobriquet upon him, Namak ka Daroga. Let us know what sort of treasure trove of knowledge he is going to unfold before us on coming Saturday. With all this, Madam Monika ji, I know it's so nice, Madam, you have given us your invaluable time. Very, very many thanks to you, Madam. मैं आपको प्रणाम करता हूँ. I salute you, Madam. Thanks a lot to you for all your erudition. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.
Hello, Madam.
Hanji, yes.
So Madam, it's so nice. Thanks a lot for giving such a valuable time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure and a privilege.
Madam,
and thank you, Professor
kindly
Patel.
speak to Dr. Stephen Gill also. For,
yes, I will.
anytime in the October. Thank
Sure.
you, Madam. Okay,
Hanji.
bye. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Okay.
Great conversation.